My best friend finally confessed he loved me, but my dream job overseas showed up that same day. Zachary and I met freshman year at 2 in the morning in the library, both dying over the same hard chemistry exam. He walked up with 2 coffees, looked at my shaky hands and said, "You look like you're about to cry into that periodic table." I laughed, then actually did tear up, and he slid the extra cup over like it was no big deal. After that, we were together all the time. We'd claim the same corner table, trade notes, and whisper jokes so the librarian wouldn't kick us out. When I failed a midterm, he showed up at my dorm with cheap ice cream and the worst movies he could find, and we watched them anyway. When my grandma died, he drove 4 hours with me without asking a single question, just kept one hand on the wheel and one on my shoulder at red lights. The catch was, I had a boyfriend, Kyle, from high school, and he went to college 3 states away from me. We did long distance for years, texting every night, planning visits, trying to act like it was normal. Kyle hated hearing Zachary's name, and Zachary got quiet whenever Kyle called while we were hanging out. Sometimes Zachary walked me back to my dorm, paused at the door, then mumbled, "Get some sleep," and left. Once during finals week, we were alone in his room. The air smelled like instant noodles, and he leaned in like he was going to kiss me. Then he stopped, pulled back fast, and said, "I don't want to mess up your life." I told myself I imagined it, because admitting it felt dangerous. Senior year, Kyle and I finally cracked. Over Thanksgiving break, he accused me of caring more about my campus friends than him, and the call ended with both of us staring at our phones in silence. 2 weeks later, I saw his Instagram story from a party, and he had his arm around a coworker like they were a couple. When I called, he swore it was nothing, but his voice sounded practiced, like he'd already rehearsed the lie. I hung up, slid down my dorm door, and cried so hard my face hurt. Without thinking, I walked across campus to Zachary's dorm in the cold, knocked until he answered, and the second I saw him, I started shaking. He pulled me inside, wrapped me in a hoodie, and let me fall apart on his bed. Around 3 in the morning, when my tears finally slowed, he whispered, "I should have told you sooner," and my stomach dropped. He said he'd been in love with me since first night in the library, since I fell asleep on my textbook and he covered me with his jacket. I didn't know what to say, because it felt like every weird moment suddenly clicked into place. We talked until the sun came up, sitting on the floor with empty coffee cups between us, and when he reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. That morning felt like the start of something I'd been waiting for without realizing it. Then, that same afternoon, my dad called and said his company was transferring him overseas, and they wanted me to take a management job in London right after graduation. It was the kind of offer you don't get twice, and they needed an answer fast because the job started in 2 months. Zachary had already signed on for a master's program on campus here and was locked in for at least 2 more years. We tried to solve it like a homework problem, making lists, checking flights, saying, "What if you visit on breaks?" and "What if I transfer later?" But every option ended with the same ugly truth. We'd just survived years of long distance once, and it had already broken me. For a week, we pretended we could beat it, still going to our favorite campus spots, still laughing, then going quiet the second we were alone. The night before my flight, we stood on the library steps where we'd met, the air sharp and cold, and he said, "Tell me to ask you to stay." I wanted to, but my throat closed up, and all I could do was shake my head. We kissed anyway, slow and careful, like we were trying to memorize it, and when we pulled apart, his eyes were red. In London, the first weeks were a blur of new streets and long work days, and every time my phone lit up with his name, my chest tightened. We tried to make it work with calls at strange hours, but one of us was always half awake, and the silence between us kept getting longer. One night, after a call where we barely said anything, he finally said, "I think we're hurting ourselves," and I couldn't argue. I swallowed, said, "I don't want to hate you," and he answered, "You won't." Then we said goodbye, and when the line went dead, I stared at the dark screen, knowing that was it.